just start with the basics. Can you share about yourself, what you have done till now, what is your key skills, and in which key skills you are being comfortable, and the recent stories, and how many companies you are working with till now?
Okay, so I passed my BTech from GITM Gurgaon in 2016. So after that, through campus placement, I was in HCL Technologies. So initially, my role was so I was basically a third-party resource there. So my initial tasks were in desktop support. After that, I moved to a project which was a technical support project, and the name was DBR. After that, I did CCNA and I was back in operations as an L1 network engineer. So after that, I left this HCL because they had promised me that they will take me on role, but so did not happen. After that, I joined Ssl Global Technologies as a network engineer, where my task was in internal operations, and there were two projects. One were SME and one was value support. So the project rolled off. So I was being offered to enter project. So after that, I joined KMG IT Services, Gurgaon. So in this company, basically soon I had joined. So the cloud work was introduced in this company. And apart from that, right now I am working in a hybrid environment in which 50% of includes cloud and 20 to 25% is DevOps, and rest of it is IT internal operations.
Okay.
So
And what about your key skills?
So in key skills, primarily, basically what happens is my task is to create resources for the production environment and whatever the client requirements. So primary skills are AWS, Linux, and Docker, and the secondary skills are being like Git and Kubernetes, only installation and basic part, and basically Terraform, etc.
Okay. Okay. So KMG, just give me a sec. I got a ping from another.
No issues.
Okay. So yeah. So when were you are currently working in KMGIT, right?
Yes.
Which is located at
Udyog Vihar, Gurgaon.
Uttar Bihar, Gurgaon. Okay. Okay. So when were you joined KMG?
July 2018.
Okay. So it's been 2 years now, almost, right?
Yes.
Okay. And okay. So came to the strong points of yours, like Docker, AWS, and there is one more.
Linux part.
Linux. Okay.
And
So okay. So when we are talking about Docker, so can you please help me out to know means what is Docker, and so just start with the basics. What the Docker do and how is.
Docker is basically an clustering and basically orchestration tool in which we create containers. So sometimes what happens is there are two types of.
Sorry. Just wait for the. Docker is an orchestration tool.
Basically, we create containers in Docker. So there are two types of application. One is monolithic application and one is microservices. So what happens is, suppose we have any application. So if we want to make any changes, so if we are making changes any one part, so it may affect other parts. So those are not logically separated. And secondly, sometimes what happens is the developers has created any code, so that is working in their environment, but as soon as the platform changes, so that stops working. So for the platform independent, we use Docker. So Docker creates basically containerization, creates container to logically separate those microservices.
Okay, so before that, the Docker, there is a tool called VMware or virtualizations in the market. So how's it been different? Because they are also been providing a separate or logical separation,
So
and you can run multiple on a
the main difference between VMware and virtualization and Docker is that VMware utilizes a lot of basically a lot of resources. So in VM, what happens is, suppose we have to create one operating system, and above that we will create virtualized environment. So if we assign say 2 GB RAM to a particular microservice, so that is not very much scalable, that is very much is not very much flexible, and apart from that it utilizes a lot of resources and is not lightweight. On the contrary, Docker containers are very lightweight in nature and gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of scaling, etc. So Docker is getting more famous than VMs.
Yeah, got your point, got your point. But I want to know about like how Docker is being lightweighted. Means what is the concept behind it? So how it will overcome this features?
So basically, the it will create the containers only up to that size which is required, and apart from that, it uses at the backend level it uses Linux, which is more lightweight than other operating systems. So in that way, it is being.
Okay, so no, just want to confirm means we can use the backend operating system Linux as well for the VMS.
Yes, that is possible, but Docker is lightweight as compared to VMs.
And means I want to know the reason why is it lightweighted. What extra it will do, so it is being lightweighted from the VMware virtualization.
It will auto scale, basically can scale up and down according to the requirements.
Okay. Can you let me know what is namespaces? Linux
Namespaces are basically to give the names to a particular container, so as to basically classify the process IDs. So that is the namespace for simplicity.
Okay. So how many types of namespaces are available in Linux? Do you have any idea?
In a Linux or Docker?
In a Linux.
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, just let it be. Okay, so when we are talking about the Docker, right, and you have deployed some application on Docker containers. So suppose there is a folder is being written on the host machine in which the container is being created, right? So, and you are using that in a host folder. So definitely there are multiple ways to read the data from that folder. While talking about there in a process of talking, uh, can you please help me out how it will be communicating with the host machine to read the data? I just want to know about the details. How is Docker being communicating to the host machine to read the data?
So basically, there are three types of networking via which it can communicate. One is bridge, one is host, and one is none. So I think it can communicate via host network type.
Okay, you are talking about the host network, and in backend there is using something Linux technologies, right?
Daemon.
Okay. Do you ever heard about C group?
C group.
Yeah.
C name I have heard. Canonical name C group. I have heard.
Okay. Makes sense. Sure. Okay. Okay. So, have you ever written multi-staging file?
Docker file.
Yeah, Docker multi-staging file.
I am unaware about the multi-staging file. I have written Docker file.
Okay, Docker file you have written. So just a basic question in the Docker file.
So just to
why? Yeah, please.
What do you mean by multi-staging file? I have not heard this term.
You can go with it. Okay, a multi-staging file is basically when we are looking for some kind of, what can I say, uh, it has been more advanced part of Docker file as well, in which we are writing our codes in means code, or I can say the file in a multiple stages. That
Oh,
will help out in some scenarios. Some
oh,
scenarios will be another aspect.
okay.
So what I'm saying,
Hmm.
what is the difference between CMD and run?
So run is basically used to run the our any service in a multi-layered architecture. So the core reason to use run is that it create a multi-layered architecture in Docker. And if I talk about CMD, so CMD is used to basically execute the command, but if there are any attributes in run, so that command will be skipped, otherwise it will run. So it is advisable to use entry point instead of CMD. So entry point has more priority than CMD.
Okay, so you're talking about the entry point has more priority than CMD.
Basically, that is a better command. Otherwise, both CMD and entry point are same.
No other difference.
Uh, yes.
Means I like to know about when we use CMD and when we use entry point.
Hmm. So
Which
entry
scenarios?
scenarios. Uh, uh, there are no basically scenarios. Scenarios that if there is any attribute during run command, then CMD will be skipped. Otherwise, CMD will be run, and entry point command will be executed every time.
Okay,
So that's
okay,
the main difference.
okay, okay. Mm, okay. Okay. So Docker is, while we are talking about Docker and Linux. So Linux, you ever use NFS, right? Whoa. Uh, yes, NFS.
Network file system.
Yes.
Network file system is basically a protocol which is used for the file sharing. So the in AWS we have used in that elastic file system. The protocol or the technology which is used for elastic file system in Linux is known as NFS.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so if I talk
When? Mhm.
so if I
Yes.
talk about Windows, so if we are creating any file server, so we access using double backslash and IP or either its host name. So similar concept in Linux is done using EFS in AWS, and basically the protocol that is being used in network file system at the backend.
Okay. So while we are talking about NFS, if you ever mount some volume, right,
Mhm.
via NFS, or so what will happen now? Sometimes you reboot and your mounting point is means your mounted disk is gone.
Mhm.
So versus that, I have to do something, some related to entries. So do you know what it? Have you ever done?
No, sorry.
Do you ever heard about FS check file?
FS check file.
Tab. FS tab.
FS tab.
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay. No issue.
So Linux we are basically using up to the level in which AWS work is required.
Okay. 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 Got it. Got it. It means I think okay. AWS.
Hmm. Because I am from network and background, so I'm not basically a Linux administrator. So
Okay. Okay. Mm, okay. So when you're talking about the networking part, so which services in AWS you have used so till now?
all the general services I have used like EC2, VPC, and
Mm-hmm.
SES, SQS, and Lambda, DynamoDB, RDS, CloudFront. and
Okay,
route
Lambda. So you have used Lambda, right?
route 53.
Okay. So what I'm asking means about Lambda. Do you means in which language you have written your scripts?
So basically the script was since we have a software development company, so the Python script was written by the developer. So basically what happened was we had some data loss in our company. So what we did was use the lambda function and attach that to the DynamoDB and S3. So whenever and gave access to our developer. So whatever the critical data was moved to S3. So it was an event was triggered using lambda, and we used to get an entry in our DynamoDB to know who has basically triggered the data transfer. So in that way, I have used lambda.
Okay, got your point. So okay, you haven't written the script. So any scripting language you are familiar with?
Yes,
Any?
I have done basic shell scripting and not in
Uh,
Python. Also.
okay, so what was your best program or best script you have written so far?
So basically, I had created some like I have told you, my task is to create for production environment resources for production or environment. So 6 to 7 months back, I had written a script in which the EC2 instances or the server should stop automatically during the night time and start during the daytime. So I had that time I had written a script, and after that I used cron expressions to execute that script.
Okay, got your point. So
But
how many servers you are talking about for running using this script?
so basically in parallel there were 10 servers. So 5 servers was to be stopped during the night time, and 5 servers sorry, 10 server was supposed to be run during the daytime. So that, and basically client developers had created some code, and they were testing their code. So I had to make an create and hand over that particular infra to the client.
Okay. So you have write a shell script to stop the environment at the night while running a cron job in every server, right?
Hmm. So that was basically 5 to 6 months back. So
Okay, no issue, no issue.
uh,
Okay. You are talking about. We are talking about Lambda. I just got distracted. Scripted. So Lambda. While we are talking about the Lambda, right? So how would the suppose we have to use some services which is being in the VPC, right? Let's say it is an EC2 instance, and I have to access it via Lambda function. So what I have to do to reach the VPC EC2 instance via Lambda?
So basically, there are some resources whenever any event which is triggered. So we will go to the lambda, and whatever the scripting is required, whether in Python or Node.js or JSON format, we supply that code to the lambda, and
Yeah, that I can understand. Means yes, the script has been written. I'm talking about the networking. How the Lambda is being reaching to the VPC.
at the backend how it is reaching VPC.
Yes. Or what configuration we have done to reach it to the VPC.
Configuration. So I think we VPC private link or endpoint.
Okay. So you are private link. Okay, got your point. Means you are adding one more resource to communicate to the EC2 instances. Isn't it better to directly attach to the VPC?
Yes, that is the best.
So it will be private and privately passing through the Lambda and cannot go to the endpoint because it is adding one more service.
So that will be accessing through the route tables, or so if it is in private subnet, so that will be accessed using the net.
Okay, no issue, no issue. No issue, but so. What are the things you have worked? Okay, so VPC peering you have done. Have you ever worked with Direct Connect?
No. Direct connect is basically, if we want to, it is the most secure connection between the client and the cloud front. Other options are to create a VPN or either connect your internal infra to the cloud using BGP. So I didn't get a chance to use the Open Connect, but that is a dedicated connection between your infra and cloud.
Okay. Have you ever set up VPN or Bayesian server for the client?
A VPN for what?
VPN or Bayesian server for the client to access securely via their network to the EC2 instances.
So basically, there are two methods. One is to create, if we want to create the connection between the company and that cloud. So I had done once. So that's the very long process, and there were a lot of commands. So we have written those commands in our like notepad, etc. But right now I don't remember. So once I had done that, and apart from that, if we want to uh, connect our laptop to any EC2 instance in our the cloud front, so for that we use Ssl Vpn. So for that we use Open VPN, go to AWS Marketplace, and like we install EC2 instances, similarly create an Open VPN instance. After that, take the configure it fully, take the SSL plugin into our laptop, and after that supply user ID and password, and we are directly
Okay.
connected to the EC2 instance. On
So while talking about load balancers, you have worked with load balancer, yes? Okay, so there are 2 to 3 type of load balancer available in AWS. That is NLP, ALP, and CLP, right? And while we are talking about NLP and ALP, so what is the core difference between them?
core difference is based upon the protocol. Application load balancer works on HTTP and HTTPS, and network load balancer works on TCP and UDP.
So okay,
One is
so
OSI layer 7 and OSI layer 4.
okay, got your point. So OSI layer 7 and OSI layer 4. Okay, so means why we are maintaining these two differences, means what advantage we get by layer 4 load balancer or layer 7.
So basically, to segregate or the classify the data, if that any application is more on the HTTP and HTTPS site, like any website, so that will be done using application load balancer. And if the data is like TCP or UDP based, so that will be implemented using network load balancer.
And which is faster in serving the request?
I think application load balancer should be fast. So I am
Why is that?
unaware that which is fast, but if I think logically, so application load balancer should be fast.
And what logic you are, means I just wanted to know at what basis you are choosing your choice.
If we are using any website, right? So if I am talking to you right now, so the voice is the UDP connection and the video is the TCP connection. So the data is continuously moving to and fro. So there might be some congestion, and if we load any website, so the latency is more, like I'm clicking and fetching data on a longer based on time. So In that way, application load balancer may be faster. So I don't know which is faster, but as per my logical,
No issue. Just that is your
my
okay,
thinking.
got it. Okay, so you haven't worked on Jenkins, right?
I have worked on Jenkins, but like you had asked me primary and secondary skills. So Jenkins is my secondary skill. So basically, we have set up Jenkins for our developer, software developers. So basically, they post their code on Git. So we pull their code, and apart from that, if we want to write any, basically create a pipeline. So for that, we use Jenkins. So in our company, the version which is being used is 2.2.3. So not all the projects are using Jenkins, and there are only one.
Okay. So same is about Terraform for you, right?
Terraform is basically an infrastructure as a code. So I know
Means
basic.
have you ever used it? Means like it is a secondary skill or it is a primary?
Secondary skill.
Okay.
So there are two types of services. One is cloud formation and one is Terraform. So Terraform I have used on my own.
Okay. So you have done some POCs by yourself, right? To learn, right?
Yes.
Okay. 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 You worked with VPC, right? So VPC, I have one question. Means like once you have defined the VPC, you can change their subnet. Means the IP's range.
No, we have to create another VPC and delete it.
The new one. There's any way you can extend the VPC?
Extend the VPC means extending the IP range.
Yes.
So basically, in our organization, that is already extended. So the minimum CRDR range is 16. So by default, we take 16.
Okay.
But as per my knowledge, once VPC is created, so if we want to make any changes, so we have to create it all over again.
Okay, Ritik. Okay, that's all from my end. And do let me know if you have any question.
No, sir, not as of now.
Okay.
So which one was faster in load balancer?
NLP.
NLP was faster. So reason?
Reason it is running on layer 4, as you have said already. It is a more TCP connection. It doesn't have to make the one more connection, right?
Okay.
So how would the client and the destination is making a connection?
Okay.
What will be the process? The process is simply it will hit a request. It will make acknowledgement. There is something ARLPN. I don't remember the protocol. After that, there is a TCP connection has been gone, right? Created. The TCP pipeline in between, there is a TCP pipeline. Now it doesn't have to make such more fuss in comparison to application load balancer. The lower you get, the faster you become in networking, right?
Okay.
That is my understanding as I have read, and there's one more thing. There's HTTP 2 will came, right? So उसमें भी काफी है, but okay, you ever worked on HTTP 2?
No, sir.
Okay.
So the connection is basically once the primary and secondary will send ACK, and after that the client will send ACK plus sync bit, and after that a SYN bit is returned. So in that way there are at the backend there are a lot of sliding window protocols, and lot of protocols are working in TCP. So in that way the three-way handshake is done at layer 4. So after that, TCP connection is made. So that way it works. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Ritvik.
Okay, thank you.
Have a nice day.
Okay.
And one more thing might be, I'll share the feedback with the HR. It might be sharing some tasks with you.
Yes.
Okay, that you have to might complete. That they will share the timeline as well. But I don't say about. Yeah. Sorry.
So if I talk about task, I was thinking about it. So till Friday it is my office, so I give my time. So in Saturday, Sunday is my off. So
Okay, so okay. If I have to share, I'll share it on Saturday, Sunday, or HR have to share. They will share it.
I will talk to you. Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Okay.